Hello and welcome back to another episode of Ruining Your Childhood.
Welcome back to another episode of Ruining Your Childhood, one sculpt at a time. I was looking through my comments and I came across this guy. So today we're going to be creating Bill Cipher from Gravity Falls. We first start off with a flattened out piece of clay with a pre-selected thickness. I then take a flat edge, aka a piece of cardboard that I found in the trash, to cut out a triangle. Once I was happy with that triangle, I then take a pre-baked eyeball that just so happens to kind of look like a hardened callus. Finding the center of that triangle, I leave a little bit of extra space on the bottom, then I cram that bad boy in. After that, I take one of these natural textured sponges. I'm going to use this to give the surface of Bill's bod a little bit of rocky texture. You can find these sponges pretty much at any of your local hobby stores. They're like $2 a pack, I think. Honestly, I have no clue. I just made that price up, but they're really inexpensive. And after we're done giving him a case of micropiterocolysis, we can go ahead and shove this clear rod up his underside. Ideally, I want to make him look like he's floating, and with this clear rod, hopefully it'll help sell that illusion. I'm happy with the placement, so we could go ahead and remove that rod and then put it in the oven for its first bake. Now that our little crispy Dorito boy is fully baked, we can start adding some details. I lay down a flat piece of clay across the lower section of his body, cutting off the excess with my X-Acto knife, then flattening it out with my sculpting tool before reinserting that pole. I then take my small ball stylus and draw on that brick pattern before taking my sponge and adding that texture on top. Once I was happy with how the texture was coming out, we could go ahead and start on his eyelid. I cut out a small piece of clay that I lay over top of the eye. Then using the back of my X-Acto knife, I go ahead and blend the rest of the excess clay into the face. And once again, using my trusty sponge, I go ahead and reintroduce that texture before repeating the same process for the lower lid. And the last thing we need to do to finish off Bill's body is add his little bow tie. Take a flat piece of clay, then I roughly cut out a bow tie shape before gently applying it to his chest. It was looking a little too flat, so I decided to curl up the corners of the bow tie to give it a little bit more three-dimensionality. Is that even a word? A professor in college used to say that all the time, and looking back, I think he just made that up. Anyway, now that Bill's bod's done, we could go ahead and stick him in the oven for another bake. Up next, we're going to work on his hat. I start off by cutting out a circle of clay that I then mash onto the top of his pointy little head. I then roll out a thick piece of Slim Jim, cut it to proper size, then apply it to that circle. Then take my small ball stylus, going around that cylinder, blending it all in together. And now that we're done with the hat, we can set that aside and start on his arms and legs. I went ahead and off camera drilled in a few small holes into the bottom of the body. I then take some pre-cut armature wire to then fill those holes. Once those holes are filled, I then take some pliers and go ahead and bend those legs into their proper bendy shape, and then we can start the inclaying process. Take some liquid Sculpey, and using paintbrush, I go ahead and evenly coat all of these wires. Then take a piece of flattened out clay, then wrap that around those poles, pinching off the extra skin and then slicing it off. Then take my finger and smooth out the edges, and then I just go around and repeat the same process for all of the limbs. Now that bad boy Billy is all sleeved up from wrist to ankle, all we have to do is make his hands. For this, I'm actually going to keep it incredibly simple and just add 2 little balls of clay to the end and blend that in. Now that we got those hands attached and I'm happy with how it's looking so far, we could put his hat back on and put it in the oven for its final bake. Now that he's back and crispier than ever, we could go ahead and start the painting process. We're going to go ahead and start with his hat. We're just going to use a black paint. I like to use a very watered down paint and then build up multiple layers. The reason for this is to eliminate some of those paint strokes that you'd get if you just applied a thicker layer. After making some light work of that hat, we could set that aside and start on his arms and legs. It's going to be getting that same black, making sure I use those thin coats and building up layers. While I'm busy slapping on this paint here, you should leave a comment down below letting me know who you would like to see me sculpt next. Once the legs and arms are done, we could go ahead and paint the bow tie that same black before going on to his body. For Bill's body, we're going to go ahead and give him that straight from the tube yellow. making sure that we get an even coat before following it up with a darker orange wash and let it soak into all the pores and cracks, dabbing it off with a sponge. I then went between the bricks and above his eyelid with a slightly darker orange version of that wash, just to give it a little bit of variety. At this point, Bill was looking pretty good, but I wanted to give him a little bit of a shine, so we went ahead and took some of this gold paint that I just barely dusted on the top. Just a dusting, just a bare minimal dusting, just so when the light hits it right. What am I doing? Once I was done with that, I went ahead and just went over the top with a lighter yellow, just to give it a little bit of a highlight on top of the bricks. As for his eye, we went ahead and just started with a white wash. And then we're just going to be building these layers up, wet blending with some red paints in the corners. This was actually pretty difficult to do. It took me multiple tries, so if it looks different in the final, that might be why. Use my little fine point brush to draw some veins before finishing it up with a straight line pupil down the center. And after about 6 tries, this is what we came up with. And now we just got to add those eyelashes. This was incredibly hard to film because I had to keep getting real close to my face. I was going cross-eyed trying to do this, but yeah, these tiny little eyelashes. They're just pieces of rolled out clay that I kind of gave a curve to and then pre-baked them and painted them and then attached them with super glue. After applying Bill's hat, we could go ahead and set him aside and start on his base. For the base, I'm going to be using a square piece of EVA foam with some coffee stirrers. Cut those off camera to the right size. I then begin the grueling process of gluing those bad boys down. I was happy with how that came out. I just had to sand down those rough edges. And then I take the back side of my X-Acto knife, scraping it across the top to give the wood a little bit more texture. Then I apply a wood varnish over the top. I had this just lying around, so I went ahead and used it. You could also get this look by just making a wash out of acrylic paint. I really wanted to gussy up this base, so I'm going to go ahead and make the little journals, the 1, 2, and 3 journals that are in the show. It's a little hard to see on camera, but I made a little plastic cutout that I'm using as a stencil. This is going to be the front and back cover. Now, was this step actually necessary? No, not at all. I easily could have just made this out of a block of clay and then carved in fake pages, but you know what? I like to make my life harder, so here we go. I then take the back end of my X-Acto knife to flatten out the spine of the book before getting my small ball stylus and sliding it across to give it the back of the book crease. I don't know. I then roll out some small pieces of tapeworm and stretch those across the back. This is going to also be a part of the book that I have no clue what it is. The binding? Perhaps? I don't know. Right now I'm just trying to freehand those hands that are going to be on the front of the book. Now for all those die-hard fans that are about to see this hand, I know. I didn't know, but now I know. And if you don't know, don't worry about it. And after cutting out that 5-fingered hand, we could go ahead and stick that on the front of the book. To finish it off, I finished the corners with these little triangle bits. I know nothing about books, I'm realizing. I went ahead and finished off the book by adding the number on the front, and I went ahead and made the other ones off camera, but this is a quick look at what they're going to look like on the base. I'm going to add little pages torn out on the front. And that's what these are. These are supposed to be little torn out pages of journal that I'm going to scatter across the top. And with the pages and journals done, it's off to the oven for a quick bake. Once I let these bad boys cool down, I went ahead and took them outside for a quick spritz of an undercoat. Then started painting all the pages with an off-white color. I wanted them to look weathered and used. Now that the pages are repainted white, I could go ahead and start painting the cover of the books. You're going to get a very watered down red, followed by multiple layers to help eliminate those brush strokes. As for the hand and the little detailing on the books, it's going to get that same gold paint that I actually used to dry brush on the surface of Bill. And once I got the base coat done on all of the pages and journals, we could go ahead and just tie it all together with a dark black wash. And with that and a little bit of off-camera assembly, we're on to those JCPenney glamour shots. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and also leave a comment down below of who you would like to see me sculpt next. I'll see you next time.